University of Alberta in Edmonton. And currently I'm working on Phage Directory, which is our startup. Me and Jan work on that together. So really excited to be here. Thanks for having us. This is going to be fun. This is one of my favorite topics outside of talking about bacteriophages all day, is talking about more options for PhD students in science specifically, because that's what I know, going into like startup world and, you know, business, and not seeing it as like selling your soul to industry. Like I feel like I was under this guise of just thinking like that for so long in my PhD. I always stressed about careers and wanted to do academia maybe, but like only because it felt like the only acceptable option in my peer group. So I love to talk about this kind of stuff and just talk about what it's like to start a startup while you're a PhD student and beyond, because I graduated 2 years ago. Yeah.
My name is Jan. I have a master's in human-computer interaction. So coming from the engineering side, it's definitely much closer to the professional world and much farther from the academic world. So I have a very different point of view, I guess. But I think like everything we do, like everything we do today, I'm taking bits and pieces from what I learned in like when I was doing my master's and so on. Like I don't think that side ever really leaves you. Like you just have that viewpoint and you adapt that to whatever new, you know, challenges get thrown in front of you. And so yeah, so for Phage, actually, I'm the technical co-founder. I do all the design, all the tech, and a lot of some of the decision making as well.
Some. Hi everyone, my name is Mihaela. I have a background in political science and also data science. My professional background is in communications, public affairs and communications, and I basically combined in my business my passion for research, communication and design. So realizing that robust evidence doesn't have to be communicated in boring black and white formats, that it can be visual, it can be easy to understand. That's when I founded Research Retold as a service for researchers to help them communicate their findings in this more visual and accessible ways. And yeah, I'm very passionate about making that research actionable and making a difference in the real world rather than accumulating dust on the shelves of a university. Yeah, that's what my business is about, and look forward to a conversation today about business and academia.
Hi everyone, so my name is Hassan. I'm part of the Scientistt team alongside Callum. So I did a brief intro at the beginning. In terms of my background, so I was doing my research master's, so I don't have a PhD. I was looking into academia, so the research master's was a way to find out whether like PhD would be the right path for me. But yeah, that is when, you know, I looked at other things as well. So I got involved with a lot of other things while I was doing my master's. So like I worked for a startup while at uni, and then I did some consulting work through a university society for charities and things like that. And then I just found out that like I have a more of an interest in business and startups. So I decided to stay in that. So I started Scientistt by learning some programming myself, and then Callum joined in from Durham as well. And now I'm also outside Scientistt. I'm also involved with increasing diversity in venture capital. So like another problem with startups is a lot of startups, the money goes to founders who are white privileged, comes from a very privileged background. So like, especially like women, less than 1% get funding. So that is something I'm involved with as well. So like I have a bit of background in venture capital right now as well. So like, yeah.
That's great. Thank you all for your introductions. I can hopefully everybody that's attending and also everyone on the panel can see the different sort of diverse experiences that we've got. And it sort of perfectly leads on to what the first question was supposed to be, almost like we planned it, which is how has or did academia or your experiences in your academic life prepare you at all for what you're doing now in terms of business? you can sort of answer partly maybe on practical terms and things that you learn, or maybe mindset, attitudes, experiences, things like that. So yeah, I'd like to open that one up first. How did you make that transition, or did you feel prepared at all from your academic training?
Oh, that's a tough question. I would say, is this open to the panel, or is that all right to answer?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I felt completely unprepared to start a business with my degree in political science, politics and international relations. It's like, how on earth am I going to start a business? And I felt that I didn't want to just jump into straight from starting it, but actually do kind of a buffer course in between, which was called the New Entrepreneurs Foundation. It's a 1-year course that I took in the UK and was in London. It was a hybrid course. It taught you the theoretical elements of entrepreneurship as much as you can learn about starting a business in a classroom, because most of the learning is done outside of the classroom. But then I worked in a startup and actually learned from the founder that was running that startup. Mostly what I didn't want my startup to look like. That was a good learning experience. And also some of the things that I wanted. So I certainly felt that I needed to have like a one step before starting my business, which was to learn more about work in a startup, see what it looked like, learn a little bit more about entrepreneurship in a theoretical sense before I actually took that leap of faith. What was your experience, guys?
I have a comment on that one. Am I okay?
Yeah.
Similar, yeah, Mihaela, to what you said. Coming from science, I would never have thought I could start a business. That was not at all. I was never going to do that, because obviously I can't do that. Like, that's just wasn't in my head. But I met Jan just through swing dancing, like completely separate circle of my life, and telling him about a problem in our field, which it's not like I framed it that way. It was more, I was just telling him about what I do and showing him this tweet that I had seen where people are trying to, like, I study bacteriophages, which kill bacteria. And I showed him a tweet showing that like somebody was trying to get these things for a human patient. I was like, whoa, look, they're using phages. This is what I study. And then, so that was me kind of showing that like our field is using Twitter to coordinate life-threatening disease treatments. But so I painted the problem and he saw it and was like, hey, we can like solve this. But I didn't know that's what I was doing. And we started this, we did this accelerator program, which similar to what you said, Mihaela. That really made me feel better, because once I learned that there was someone's going to teach me, like, because I'm like a classic student type, I just want like a teacher and like, I'm going to take notes and you're going to tell me how to start a business. Okay. So that made me feel really excited. And I remember Jan being like, oh, we could take or leave it. Like, we could do this. And I was like, what? No, I want the instruction. So, and it was only a 6-week course, once a week, but it was so helpful to just feel like I had some background. And then, yeah, but everything else has been kind of like on the job, I guess.
Yeah,
but
that's a really good point. Like coming from, I've spent a decade in doing like industry and working in other startups and other companies by now. So for me, it's a little bit different, but this is still my first real startup I've worked on my own, right? And I think the difference here is that, like, whether you're coming from academia or the industry, it's like creating your own startup. I've been comparing that a little bit to like what a PI does at a university, right? Like, here's a bunch of ways you can do whatever you want to accomplish, and you either have to spend your time to like seek out money, or you have to spend your time to actually make progress. And a lot of times you only have so much time, so you like either do one or the other, and the other side suffers. It's like constantly chasing, rabbits that are like a little bit too far away from you, kind of thing. And then I think the other thing is that, like, and there's so many ways you can do it, and there is no best way, and there's ways to learn how other people do something. So for example, we listen to a lot of podcasts, like This Week in Startups, NFX podcast, a lot of other podcasts, just to hear about what other people do and how other people did it. But that's in no way, like, guidance that like we should do exactly what they do, because they also come from different backgrounds. They have different like they learn things differently, right? They know different things. So like it's a constant struggle to like know exactly like like, are we doing this right? Are we doing this correctly? Are we too slow? Are we moving too quickly? Like what have we been doing? Especially during the pandemic, it was like, well, should we just get real jobs and like wait the pandemic out? Like it's constant doubt for us. Because we don't have funding yet, we're trying to go bootstrapped. We're trying to not raise that much money, or if at all. So it's a constant struggle of like, are we doing the right thing? Should we raise money? We're lucky that we don't need full-time jobs right now because we have enough in savings and friends and family to like keep going. But again, it's always like, are we making enough progress? Like we know we have a runway, we know we're going to run out of money, and we know like at some point we do need jobs if we can't make this work. So yeah, that's constantly stressful.
And it's so similar to science though, because you're I thought, going to business would be like, oh, constant stream of money and I just do my pipetting and then I go home. But it's like, okay, that's true in a big company, but like science, like you're trying to get grants and you're trying to make what you're doing, what you think you should do, best fit what the funder would fund. It's like the exact same thing in a startup. Like we have a skill set, we have an idea, we see a problem, we can fix it in this way, but like, are those people going to pay for it, or who will pay for that solution? It's like the more I am in it, the more I realize it's very similar to science. So I am prepared for it. And the persistence in the face of like impending doom and constant small failures in science, that's the same. So you're actually prepared for it. And that I never knew that as a PhD student.
Yeah, I agree a lot with everything the panel says, and like very similar experience. That's very interesting as well, because like, yeah, very similar. So I would say like it both helped me and didn't at the same time. So like as Jess and Jen mentioned, I think a lot of the skills, especially experimentation. So like as a startup, you always go with some kind of like theory, and you need to prove that it's right, that there is a problem you're solving. So you have to do a lot of research on that. So I think that helped me a lot, being able to take in a lot of information, having little experiments going on to prove that model works to investors or anyone interested in funding. But then at uni, I also had to like get out of that academic environment as well to develop the other skills. So even we went through a business incubator to understand business models, to understand marketing and things like that. Then, as I mentioned, I got involved with startups myself, consulting work, because I found the academic environment, the people in that environment were too focused on their academic subject. So I thought like, as a startup, you need to be more well-rounded. So that's why I had to go out of the sphere to develop the skills as well.
Yeah. If I could just jump on and say that absolutely the importance of accelerators, startup competitions, incubators. I mean, I know at the University of Sheffield where I studied, they had what's called University of Sheffield Enterprise. Sadly, it's no longer there, but it's an arm of the university that helps students of that university to get their ideas off the ground. They usually have some bit of funding to help you get started buying a website or doing like that initial setup. That's where you go pitch and you say, hey, I've got this idea and I'm a student, and will you just listen to me and see if this makes sense? And that was such a safe space for me to experiment, or at least just say what my idea was, and to get some form of feedback from that team. And so definitely academia in that way, or that part of the university, gave me that a safe space to test the idea and to get started. And so I'd encourage you to look at your own universities and say whether they have those kinds of departments, or maybe, how do they support startups within their higher education setting within their university?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
go on, Hassan. Go on. It's all yours.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think a lot of academics and research students are put off, like thinking, do I have the skills to understand all the businesses? But I think like the amount I learned in just 6 months was so much. And I think because the research environment we come from, we are able to take that much information and learn so quickly. So like, Mahela mentioned, I think just going through that learning through others, taking their information is just going to improve your skills so much and so quickly as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was the one that wrote the question, and I think that is slightly flawed in itself. I think your response is probably all linked to the
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think all of your answers all link to the idea of sort of learning on the job, and sort of like you can have as much training or as things written down, as many manuals thrown at you as you want, but without actually immersing yourself in the experience, that's where you actually manage to learn things. So to wrap up that sort of segment of conversation, I thought I'd launch a poll for all the participants. The panel, feel free to get involved in it as well. It's completely anonymous. So I'll launch that now. So the first one is, have you received any business or finance training within your academic experience so far, or when you were in academia? Take the question however you like. It's just interesting and nice to get a gauge on the feeling of the whole room.
They didn't give to me.
Yeah, I see no.
Yeah, we sought it out ourselves.
I can see that I'm not just sat here, by the way. I can see the percentage of people that voted, so I'm just giving everybody a second. Perfect. So I believe, let me know if, can you see that on your screen now, the results?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's probably something that you may have expected or may have not, but yeah, that's something to capture from the situation, and sort of realize that everyone that you see that has created a business from academia probably fits into that 82% that we've seen here, and didn't actually receive that training and have still managed to get there. So it's probably a positive sign to be able to take from it. Okay, let me stop sharing that poll.
Mm-hmm.
Has that disappeared from your screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so the next question sort of dials back a little bit from the later stage businesses that you're at, or sort of how developed you are. And it's more, how can you start going about leveraging your own abilities or skills and talents that you've got to maybe make some money alongside your academic studies, or sort of how can you put your little side hustle into place? Where does that get started?
I think
That's a tough one.
you
That's very
want to,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Okay, I'll say what I was gonna say. Finding the problem is kind of like the way to start. That's kind of what I'm coming around to as like the best thing I can suggest. Instead of, I used to think like starting a business, it always sounded cool, you know, but it sounded like you had to have like some idea that's going to make money, like, but I never thought of it as, you know, find a problem in your field, and the closer it is to your field, I think it's the easiest, because you're most likely to be the only one who can see that problem and also feel like they're going to start a business to solve it. Like of all the people who understand, say, your, like my field of microbiology research, for instance, of all the people in that field, most of them are doing microbiology research. And some of them, very few of them, are thinking, how can I solve problems for this field from a meta perspective? Like, we're trying to make it easier for researchers to exchange bacteriophages and to get those into the clinic, like help them get their research translated, kind of like Mihaela was talking about too. And so that's like a meta problem. Almost no one in my field is actually thinking like that. So that when it kind of makes me feel more comfortable thinking like, oh, I don't have to come up with like some hard, like perfect invention idea. It's not like that. It's more like if I'm seeing a problem and like thinking of solutions to make it easier, there's probably no one else who's going to come to that. So that's a nice way to start, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Sorry, Callum.
No, go for it.
Yeah, like yeah, outside of one of the things that I do as well as like so like from an investment perspective as well, investors will always look at founders who really understand the problem they're doing. So I'd be like, yeah, whatever research you're doing, you are probably few people on earth that knows about the problem and that information. So I would say is like first thing is leverage that information. So like build something around that, you know, then you don't have that many competitions, you don't have that many people trying to do the same thing. And then another thing I think really helps is once you have that information, look what other people are doing in other industries. So like Jess and Jen, even I look at, you know, I go to like different accelerator websites, look at the startups there, and then I see the ideas there, and then I think, how can this be leveraged to the research environment? Very similar thing to this. So I think, yeah, if you have the expert knowledge of your own market, your own problem, then I think you can easily put other solutions into the same thing and you have a business.
Yeah.
In terms of leveraging skills, for me, it was very much a case of I'm very good at understanding research and explaining it in interesting ways, but I also like graphic design. So I took this graphic design course while I was studying. But I'm also really interested in communication. And oh, there's this problem that I see. And how about I combine these three things and ask this person if they need this service and they could maybe pay me for it? Because that's the other thing. It's like, it'd be great if you had this idea, but if no one's willing to pay you, and it's the best proof that you can get, you know, if someone's willing to say, I'm going to give you £50 for you to do this for me. It's like, great. That is the best £50 I have ever earned in my life. And, you know, side fact, my first project was £50, and it was like the best £50 I ever got, because it was, you know, answering that real problem. And this person was willing to trust me with their money, you know? And so, you know, much like, you know, like Jess was saying around, I didn't have to like invent something complete, you know, unheard of innovation, you know, communicating research. If you think it's not rocket science, but it's something that was responding to a real problem in the real world, and someone was willing to pay for that to be solved. But it's interesting because I never thought of my business as a side hustle. You know, people talk about that a lot these days. Like, oh, I'm going to just start my side hustle while I'm doing, like, I don't know, maybe that language is just not there like 5 years ago, but I didn't think I'm going to just make a little bit of money while I study. I just generally thought, well, what are my options after I graduate? You know, I could get a job at McKinsey. Oh, I don't know, like get a job at this consultancy, like a lot of my friends are doing, or get a job with the European Commission, or things that were available to me. Or I could go to this accelerator competition and see if this could go somewhere, you know. And like earlier we were talking, this is the most stressful path of all of them, and it's the riskiest, and it's the one that's, you know, it might not pay off, and you might look back and think, why did I choose this? And, you know, it comes with, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a second, the challenges that come with it. But yeah, I didn't think of it as a side hustle. I just thought, okay, this could be like a genuine career path, and I'm choosing to do this and see where it goes. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to have to admit that it didn't work, and then find an alternative career path that will satisfy my parents more than what I chose. So yeah, that's my answer to like connecting these skills and answering a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, we're still not a registered company. We're still a side hustle that we're spending more than full time on. And we just decided to not find another job right now because the side hustle is so important to us that we're trying to make it work by finding ways for other people to give us money so we can continue doing our thing. And our goal isn't to like become billionaires or to like buy yachts and like fast cars, right? Our goal is to make phage therapy available to everyone affordably. So the people fighting like antibiotic resistant infections have another alternative. Like that is our goal. So we're very mission driven, but we also realize that we need a way to make money to continue this. Either is to have a business model where someone, as you said, like someone will like to pay for you to like continue, or we just have to scale it back and maybe spend 10 hours a week on this while we take on regular jobs. Because if that is the way we can continue doing this thing, that is totally legitimate. Like we're still going to be doing this. It's still a project. We still have the mission. It's just at a different scale. And I think that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah, just to jump in there, Waleed, I can see that you've raised your hand, so just give me a second. There's been a question in the chat that sort of relates to the previous topic, but I think it's also relevant here in sort of defining what is a business, or what else do you have time to do? Is it only a business if you're working full time, and etc. So Victor asked, do you think that alongside your PhD or your other studies, it's worth taking masters or administration courses, for example, in business? Is it worth spending time and money on that, or potentially is there other ways that you can learn those skills? I think it's partly been covered, but does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I have a really quick thought on it. I've asked a lot of my friends who did take MBAs whether it was worth it now that we're doing a startup. And most of my friends who did MBAs, they've gone to work in consulting and they've become like middle managers at big firms. And very few of them have actually started their own startups. And they say that basically taking an MBA is not good for a startup because what you'll learn there mostly will not apply to whatever startup you're trying to do. And I'm using the word startup in the sense that I think Mark and Jason said this, that like the startup is a company or an organization in search of a new business model, like a new way to make money. Like if you're a pizza shop, you're not really a startup because you pretty much know how much money you're going to make selling pizza in that city, right? But like the things that we're doing, like we're doing a new product that has never existed. We don't know if people want to pay for it. We don't know if there's a product market fit. So like those kinds of things, you're not really going to learn at an MBA. So at least in the US, at least, getting an MBA, the best part about that is building all those networks, like getting all those professors that know like VC firms, that know investors, that like you get this huge network together. So at least in the US, like that's pretty much all you're going to get. Even at bigger schools like Harvard Business School, it's all about the network and who you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, sorry, Justin.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I completely agree. I think you take an MBA if you're going to consulting or management. And from what I've seen, I think startup founders have better skills than an MBA. And a startup founder, like once they've left their startup, they work in like partner level, not even management. Because like, yeah, the amount you learn, I think you guys will agree, is way more you learn through an MBA, just through startups. In starting a business, constantly tweaking the business model, you're doing marketing, you're doing accounting, you're doing the legals as well. So I think that takes more. But I would also say, yeah, I did take some courses, but I didn't pay for it. So there are like, right now, there are like a lot of online free platforms. Like one platform I use is called edX. So I did like, a consulting kind of like market validation courses like that. So yeah, so definitely take courses like that to upskill yourself. But I wouldn't pay for things like that, especially not an MBA.
Yeah.
I was going to say something similar. Sorry, Mihaela. Exactly what I was going to say is what you said is like, I got this advice too late. I was already at the end of my degree, but I got the advice to take courses from the business school while you're doing a PhD or audit them. That like, just to get your exposure and your confidence when you're going into the business world, I would definitely, if you can, like see if you can take some of those courses. I think that's like a great middle ground. But I just was too far into the degree to like even have a whole semester left by the time I was thinking like this. Otherwise I would have, because for me, the hurdle has been not my skills, but my confidence in my skills. And the more confidence I get that I'm like, okay to be here doing this, which to me comes from like behind the scenes by myself learning about the thing. So if I took a course, I know, because I know myself on that, I know that would help me just from the confidence perspective. Whereas maybe someone like Jan, who like, I don't know, that's not where he's lacking. He seems much more able to just know that he's supposed to be here doing this. Maybe you wouldn't get the same thing from it.
Well, actually, so like, I think one thing that is really different from academia, because I've never done a PhD, like a research PhD. One thing I've realized that like in academia, failure is such a bad word. Like it's so scary to like fail often to fail quickly, even though like in research, I guess like the purpose is to like try and fail, right? But like I feel like a failing grade or like, like this experiment didn't work out. Like it just sounds really bad, even though it's supposed to not sound bad. Whereas like in startups and businesses, it's like everyone knows that 90% of startups fail. Everyone knows that most companies pivot at least a few times before they hit their stride. Like we know that people change their ideas and concepts all the time in order to like survive. So like failure is very accepted. It's so common and so like normative, I guess. Versus like, I don't know, like all the professors that we've talked to as part of Phage Directory, it's always like, wow, you're gonna fail. Like, wow, like you might have to find a real job, or how are you gonna make money? It's like don't worry about that. Like if we need to scale back and get real jobs, like we can. Like don't worry about how we're going to be.
One thing I wanted to say about what, just piggybacking on what the speaker said before around self-awareness of how you learn best, right? So if you know that the best way you learn is, and I completely get the getting a course, I was taking notes, I was like, this is how to make a marketing strategy or whatever it was, right? This is how to price things. And then it comes, so that's like the taught, right? The course and the structure. And some people just need that, right? I think especially for all of our research backgrounds, we all are familiar with that way of learning. But then there's like the real experience. Like I want to learn by actually being in the thick of it and doing it. And so I wanted to just say that you might want to get some real experience, right? Is Global Startup Weekend. And I'm going to just put a link in the chat. It's basically a global event that happens, I believe, I'm not sure, in October, or it's happening globally all over the world. It's like a weekend where it's a free event that happens, and this is usually organized in universities. I'm pretty sure there is a startup weekend event around you. Have you ever attended one, the panel?
No.
Anyone heard of Startup Weekend? But it's basically a weekend that encourages people to come and pitch their ideas. And you don't necessarily have to have an idea. You listen to the people pitching, and then you say, yeah, I want to join that person. And so on the night, maybe 5 or 6 ideas get to form a team. And within 48 hours, you are part of a team that has to basically test the hypothesis that this is working, go out and talk to people, get customers. I'm thinking how they'll do it virtually or whatnot. But this is just a great experience for you to at least just get a taster of it, because it can be really daunting to get into the startup world from the research world and how to make that transition, right? So to answer Victor's question, I would 100% hack my education. I would not pay money, especially not the kind of money that an MBA, just don't. I mean, we're already in debt, all of us. Like we have like education loans. Like absolutely not. You can hack and learn in YouTube and look at videos and just like talk to people, reach out to founders or entrepreneurs and get them to talk to you about their experiences and try to just hack your way through it, and before you even consider spending that amount of money on it.
I really agree with that. I think one thing that we both do really well, and I think what you also do really well from what you got from academia, was like, I feel like academics are really good at like hacking their way through things, like just like not faking it, but like finding cheaper ways to do things. Like because like I think once you spend enough time like in a cushy job, like you get used to like spending $8 on a latte or something. like that becomes like the norm, and then all of a sudden you don't want to do more hacky things, or you don't want to try to ways to save money because you're so comfortable. I think that's like the superpower of academics. It's like you're kind of put in a position where you don't have just like a lot of like superfluous money to throw around. So like you find ways to save money, and you find ways to like supercharge whatever you want to do. With like very little money. Like for example, we kind of, this is being recorded. We use alternate ways instead of paying $40 per publication, for example. We find other ways to find journal papers.
We can edit that out for a small fee. Just
For more information, contact.
Yeah, the business is all gone now. That's it. The VCs, they've had it. Waleed, would you like to ask your question? Sorry, I can see you've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, it's not really a question, but if I may share something.
Yeah.
So so it's just for me, how it started, the idea is that once I wanted to attend a workshop about molecular docking and simulation. So when I asked my PI, so it turned out that the grant we have consumed the money. So he proposed to pay by himself to help me and pay for the workshop. But the condition was when once I'm back, I need to do a workshop for my lab mates, and then to transfer the knowledge that I learned. So that is his share. So after that, quickly people started approaching me from other universities, and I mean, I realized that I have something to share. So it's not only the thing that I'm doing for, let's say, 2-3 years in my own project, but I have skills that I can expand and go beyond the small research projects. So now people start approaching me saying, hey, I have a big system, I mean a big molecule, can you help me to sort it out? And I say, why not? Do you have a grant? So can you pay me?
Yeah.
So I say, yes, okay. Yeah, yeah. So I start, getting my name, in all universities, other places, and I start also getting some money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the, yeah.
That's great, Waleed. I think that sort of epitomizes like the idea of stumbling across something accidentally and realizing could there be a market opportunity, and being able to validate it, and sort of leads on really well to sort of the next poll that I'd like to give out to everybody, which is, for some reason it doesn't say do at the start of the question, but it should say, do you have an idea that you haven't explored yet? So something in your head that you think could be something, it might not be something. It also goes for all of our panel members. If it's a feature within your business that you think could be something and you've not explored, or something completely brand new, feel free to share, everybody.
You soon realize you have too many ideas once you start.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't possibly test out all of it.
Give it one more second. Okay, let's share that now. So as you can see from the results, 90% of people possibly or definitely do have some sort of idea in the head, which I think is great, because it means that you've probably, if you weren't at the start of the call, at least you are now thinking about things from that mindset of how can I take this advice and actually be able to put it into application, or the idea you've been sat on because you've been thinking, I'm going to have to wait until I finish so I can understand like how to invoice somebody. You can just go on a free course or learn that actually you don't need to do it properly right now. You can just dive in, create that Twitter account or whatever it is, and start things. So yeah, I think that was a really inspirational segment of the conversation. Actually, I'm feeling pumped up.
Yeah, I was wondering if anyone who said no or possibly could say what is stopping them from exploring their idea as well, if they could share, maybe.
Yeah, it's completely anonymous on the poll, so if that person feels comfortable to put in the chat or to put your hand and speak, completely up to you. But yeah, totally your decision.
Can I chime in really quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the thing with ideas is that like sometimes like a lot of people just sit on ideas, or they like wait for the best idea, but a lot of ideas are that you think are great, like ideas that we thought were amazing, like no one's wanted. Like it's like for other people it's like, oh, we don't like it just doesn't, like no one like thinks it's a good idea except for us. But some of the things that we've done that we thought like, oh, this is so dumb, let's just try it out, whatever, like it's a terrible idea, and then people love it. And so a lot of the times it's just like, we have an idea, we'll throw it out there, see if it sticks, see if people like it. If they don't, we'll just pull it back. And that's done a lot more for us than like these golden nugget ideas, I think.
Yeah, it's more rare to execute on an idea than it is to come up with an idea.
Yeah.
And so if you're holding yourself at the idea stage and waiting for the idea to be good, yeah, that's where most people stay, it seems, because executing on something, almost no one has time for it, wants to do it enough, or is in the position. Like, I consider it a privileged position for sure to be able to even work on a startup. Like, I don't have kids to support that I need an income right now. Like, I'm able to live very cheaply right now in this stage of my life, and I have the network to like get somewhere and find scientists to talk to, and they'll talk to me because I have a PhD. Like, that's a privilege that is so rare to have when you think about it across everybody. Mm-hmm. So like, chances are, if you're like, even like the worst idea, if you do something on it and you like incrementally just like put it in front of somebody, even just one-on-one conversation, just like execute a little bit on it, then you're already like blowing everybody else out of the water. So it's not really about the idea. I used to think that it was, because I think we get trained that way in science, at least, maybe in academia across the board, that novelty is like the most important thing, because you can't publish something unless it's novel. You're always trying to find the angle where you're doing something the first or the best or the like only. And I think that's that doesn't serve me in the startup world. That's what I've tried to unlearn. That's a specific thing I can think of that I've tried to unlearn. And I think it's an advantage if you can unlearn it quickly, because everybody else is going to be thinking, oh, who am I to start a business? My idea is not good enough. So like, let them think that, but you just like take your like mediocre idea and just go for it. Yeah. You'll be winning.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and sort of thinking about it from a perspective of, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, of things that you might have to unlearn is quite interesting. But moving on to the next question, I'm really conscious of the time because some people might have questions. So if we could just come to each of you once to give like a really quick thing. It's a really cliche question, but I think it's one that actually never really gets old because everybody always has a unique spin on it. What is sort of the biggest lesson, if you will, or what is the one thing that you would say you've learned from your personal experience of transitioning from academia or leaving university or whatever it was you were doing and starting a business, whether it was the first time you did it, the one you're working on now? What is one thing that you can look back on and say, actually, I wasn't prepared for this and I learned this, or I adapted to this, or whatever it is, any angle you want?
I think coming back from the last point is that taking action is the most important thing you could do. Like, I stopped treating these ideas as these like fresh little things that I need to collect in my little hand. Like, no, it's actually, okay, I'm thinking of creating a service that will serve these people. Okay, actually doing a landing page and getting that ball going and taking small incremental steps to get that into the world. And it's the kind of thing that I think, looking back over the last 5 years of doing this, has served me so well in terms of acting on a hunch or an idea that I had or whatever it was, just manifesting it, putting it out there for people to react to it and not being afraid of it flopping, basically. That's how it's.
Hassan?
Yeah, I would say like the researching really well. So like, again, the idea you have is do your research very quickly and then act on it very quickly as well. So yeah, I would again reiterate that ideas, I think, are worthless unless you start selling, unless someone buys something for you. So like, I see too many entrepreneurs have that idea well and then just acting on it very quickly as well. Have a plan to bring it to life very quickly.
Yeah, I think I agree with what everyone said. I think I've been working with startups for like 5 years. This is the first one, like, quote, real one I've tried to start. So I think I have to work on. So for me, I just never had the need to start a startup. But for me, it wasn't like, some people I met are like really infatuated with like the idea of starting their own company. So they're like, I want to start my own company. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to start my own company. And a lot of times those don't really go anywhere because they're not solving a real need, or they're not doing something that they are passionate about. But like, everyone here is passionate about the thing they've studied. So they already have the thing they know like a lot about. I think that's really important. I think you just need to like, just be aware of what you know, what you're really good at. And then also be aware that like, you might not actually be ready to go off and try this thing yet. You might just feel it around, ask friends, shop around ideas with other people, bounce ideas off of people, do more chats like this, and like tell people about your ideas, and maybe that'll like get you like, maybe this way is better, maybe that way is better, maybe like, oh, this is like perfect, I need to start. Like, just talk to more people about your idea. Don't hold it back, because that will help you develop your idea, and then that'll potentially urge you to like think, oh man, like I need to start today because this is really important to you.
Yeah, I'd echo all these too. And just coming back to like, what I've really learned is that, starting with the problem is so much more powerful, because you're going to care more about it. Mm-hmm. You are uniquely poised to act on it if it's a problem that's specific to like some small world you're in. Like, what's frustrating you about the way you currently do your job? Like, as a researcher, like, I was frustrated that publications are the only way I can look good. And it's hard to get a publication for lots of reasons that aren't related to me being good or not. I was frustrated with that. So, we're kind of trying to find ways to make it easier for researchers to look, like, show what they do in other ways. Like, that's like a small example, but just looking around for the problem and just go like when you're a kid, like brainstorm, like, what if this was true? What if this is true? What if there was no gravity? Like, you know, like what if publications didn't exist? Like, what if we all just like had blogs? Like, I don't know, just let your imagination go. Start with the actual problems around you instead of putting so much pressure on you to come up with the solution first, because that is a little bit backwards.
Or just like any kind of way of getting a positive feedback. Like even just talking with a couple of people it might be enough for you to get to the next
With a
step.
caveat on that, I put a resource of a book in the chat around the fact that, you know, when you do test out an idea, it's called the mom test. I don't know if you've ever read this book, but okay, for everyone who hasn't, the idea is that if you go to your mom and you say, oh mom, would you buy my new whatever thing I invented? She'll be like, of course I'll buy it, absolutely. This is the best idea ever. And so just putting that book out there, because there's just ways to ask people certain questions to really get to the heart of whether they will actually use for yourself to start, but just to really make sure that what you're building is something that people want, not just something they say they want because they just want to be polite and nice to you. And that's one of the books that has helped me just think about the way I ask questions, not do you like my idea, but more around, tell me more about how you currently do this. And then that just people describe their current problem there. But yeah, just look into that book and have a think.
Yeah.
Cited there.
Yeah, I think the take-home message is don't ask your friends, close friends, but your idea is good.
Yeah, I'm just gonna launch.
And then yeah. Sorry, Callum.
Yeah, my connection was terrible then. Feel free to
launch a poll.
If you
want to launch a poll,
don't be shocked.
Yeah. Honestly, my connection, everyone disappeared from my screen, and now I felt I was in a horror movie. I'm going to launch one final poll for everybody to vote on. Panel, feel free to get involved in this one if you'd also like.
Wow, no one says 100%.
Who uses an exclamation mark at the end? That's very
There's some deliberation going on in this one, I can tell.
Yeah.
We're not holding you accountable to it, don't worry. This isn't a contract.
Oh, the big thing about leaving academia, I don't know where there's space to mention this, but like something really held me back. I was so sensitive to the community not liking me anymore if I left academia, you know, like, so finding another community outside of academia, finding a community of startup people is really important, because if you do leave academia and all your friends are in academia and all your mentors think that's a step down, it's going to be very hard to stay on the course. But I think that was just a missing part of the community. So realizing that this is the community I missed, not academia. If you are considering, that's going to be a big, hard part, just to warn you. For me, it was.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, Callum, your poll came up when I talked.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. We have one more question. I'm conscious that I'm going over time, so we'll make this the last question. Neuro, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, it's not a question so much as a comment to what Jess was just saying, and that is that, first of all, I felt exactly the same way, and everybody else I've talked to feels exactly the same way. And I was at a conference last year, and they had breakout rooms, and one of the many breakout rooms was, if you're considering leaving academia, and nobody would admit to each other that they wanted to go to that room. And then it was packed with with almost everybody from the conference. So, like everyone's like, oh, I'm going to this and I'm going, and nobody wanted to say it, but then everybody ended up in the same room, which is, how can I leave academia? And especially in the US, there's so many PhDs coming in and obviously not enough jobs for them coming out. And so this is a great time to be transitioning out at the time, because I'm ancient, right? At the time that I first was getting my degree, they literally told me, if you leave academia, you're a failure. So it was so much being in a cult. And even after I left, and as a grown woman, it's really taken me a lot longer than I could have ever imagined to truly pick out all the little bugs in my program where I've been brainwashed to think I'm a complete failure if I'm not in academia and playing in this toxic environment, as opposed to going out and really using all the gifts that we've all gotten, that you guys have discussed, to create the life that I want and improve the world in ways that people need. So that's just my 2 cents.
That's great.
I could not agree more. That has so been my experience. I've been told you're going to be the lowest common denominator because everyone has a PhD. That's the bare minimum. You're leaving without a postdoc. That's how you'll be seen.
I think it's 1% of the world population that has a PhD or seriously. So it's just all brainwashing. And there's so many people who we are, and as you can see, like what Colin has done, that these communities are just going to keep growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, the movement has started.
What a way to end. What an inspirational way to end. I just want to say, first of all, a massive thank you to everybody that's attended. I've been getting emails. Sorry if you've been able to hear the binging of people asking if the recording is going to be available. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that are also going to be, I can tell that I've frozen, that are also going to be checking back and having a listen. But yeah, I just wanted to say a massive thanks to the panel. And to everybody that's attended, and I'll keep this outro bit as short as possible because it must be so annoying how much I keep freezing.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
For having us.
Great.
Yeah. Any other questions? Feel free to reach out. I mean, you put the resources and our accounts in there, and always happy to give advice, help if I can, and any words of wisdom that I can share with anyone, happy to do so.
Yeah, I was just thinking now, I have another idea now. I think entrepreneurs in academia should come together to help other people transition into startups as well. So I was thinking we could start an initiative where we give free advice to anyone looking to get a startup, thing like that as well.
Yeah, something like what it would be, peer-to-peer, or a kind of mentor. Like basically you connect one person who's done this transition with another person who wants to start or get some feedback.
Yeah. Yes. And people can throw their ideas out there and everybody can ask them questions about it. That kind of stuff too. Super
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to put something on Scientistt, and if you guys want to join the team as well. Because I currently do that for other small startups and businesses. So I give them free advice every now and then if they need it. So
okay,
join the panel as well, where we can advise academics.
Leaving academia support group.
Yeah.
Transitioning.
Yeah.
That sounds.
Help support your transition. Yes.
That's a great idea for a startup.
Do it. Seriously. That's my second. If this doesn't work, it's in that space.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.